Now you're asking, the question is failure actually inevitable? Okay, and I would say yes. Okay, and I wanted to emphasize this is not me talking, and I'm not quoting from a Greenpeace publication.
Okay.
I'm talking about official mining industry documents. Okay?
Yeah.
So, I just happen to have sitting right here an excellent book. Okay, Tailings Management Handbook. Okay, Society for Mining, Metallurgy, and Exploration. Okay, so this is official industry information.
Okay.
Okay. So the very first chapter called "What Are Tailings?" Okay,
Yeah.
the very first chapter tells us that tailing storage facilities will require maintenance in perpetuity. That is, forever. Okay, it says we have no idea how to design any engineering structure that can last forever, so they will require maintenance in forever. Okay,
Yeah.
forever. Now, who's going to carry out maintenance forever?
Yeah.
Okay, does Dalradian have a plan? How they're going to remain at this site forever, carrying out maintenance? Well, of course not. And if they said they did, who would believe them?
Yeah.
Okay. And no matter what your intentions are, how can you even make that kind of promise? There's a question I often ask audiences. I say, who do you think is maintaining all of the many tailings dams in the Ukraine right now?
Welcome to the Save Our Sperrins campaign, Voices from the Frontline. I'm Marella Fife, your host and a member of the Save Our Sperrins team. At the heart of this struggle are the voices of local people, farmers, families and young campaigners whose homes, work and families are rooted in this place. Their voices are joined by supporters from across the world, standing in solidarity, from professors to artists, from those offering vast expertise to those whose presence alone is an act of support. All have stood with us. In this series, we share stories of resistance, resilience, and hopes from those determined to protect these mountains, their land, their rivers, the very air they breathe, and their community. Let's get started. Today, we're very happy to welcome Dr. Stephen Emerman of Malloch Consulting, based in Spanish Fork, Utah, in the US of A, one of the world's foremost independent experts on the hydrology, geophysics and environmental risks of mining operations, especially tailings and mine waste storage. Dr. Emerman holds advanced degrees in geophysics, an MA from Princeton University and a PhD from Cornell University, and brings more than 3 decades of teaching and research experience in hydrology, geology and mining-related environmental science. Early in his career, he served as an academic, from assistant to full professor roles at institutions such as Utah Valley University and other universities in the US, Nepal, Ecuador, under Fulbright appointments. Since founding Malloch Consulting, Dr. Emerman has travelled the globe reviewing mining proposals and tailing facilities, assessing groundwater and surface water impacts, and providing independent expert testimony to governments, NGOs and industry alike. His work spans North America, South America, Europe, Asia and Oceania. In his own words, mining is an ultra-conservative industry out of necessity. The most serious way in which a mining project can go wrong is to incorrectly predict the consequences of the project for human life and for the environment. His publications and technical reviews include foundation reports that question accepted norms in the mining industry, for example, demonstrating that tailings storage facilities, TSFs, built using certain methods have a far higher incidence of failure than previously understood. So why is his voice so important for our discussion? Because when we talk about the proposed mine, its filtered tailing stack and the potential downstream risks to rivers, communities and ecosystems, we need to hear from someone whose work has repeatedly shown how the modelling, the assumptions, the engineering and the hydrology can all go wrong. Dr. Emerman brings the global and technical perspective, but also on-the-ground realism of what happens when failure occurs. In this episode, you'll hear how he explains in simple terms what a filtered tailings storage facility is and why it's so often misunderstood, how he calculates realistic travel distances for tailing flows, and what it means when the worst happens. What it would mean for farmland, for spawning salmon, for protected freshwater pearl mussel beds, for drinking water supplies, and for cross-border rivers if a failure occurred. And finally, whether there is truly a scientific, engineering, or ethical case for proceeding with such a facility in a region like ours. Whether you're a farmer, an angler, a local resident, a policymaker, or just someone who cares about the water, this is a conversation you'll want to listen to closely. So let's get started. Hello, Stephen, and welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on board with us today. How are you?
Good. Thank you for the invitation. It's my pleasure.
And Stephen, I see a very big dog wandering around behind you there. What is it, or is it an Alsatian, or what is it?
He is actually a wolf.
A real wolf?
Yeah, you can see him back there. Yes, he's a wolf.
Wow.
So I got him from a rescue group.
Okay.
And his name is Malach, which is Hebrew for angel.
Right.
So that's the Malach in Malach Consulting.
Oh, that's lovely. And how old is he? He looks beautiful, a gorgeous looking animal.
Well, he has a really good groomer. so that helps. He's probably about 9. He's just off the streets.
Okay. It's lovely to see. It's such a big animal. Yeah, I only very recently saw my first wolf. There's a kind of an open air animal place about an hour away from us here, and I saw them in person. I'd never had seen a wolf in person, so here's my second time of encountering a wolf. Isn't it the case, you don't know something and then you meet it 3 times in the following month or something.
I see. So he doesn't like thunderstorms, which is why he's pacing back and forth right now.
Okay.
So hopefully at some point he'll decide it's okay and he'll lie down and take a nap.
Oh, well, he's not interrupting us anyways.
No, he's fine.
Stephen, for those of us who don't know you, might you tell us a little about yourself, who you are, where you're based right now, and how you kind of got into this line of work that you do?
Okay, well, the last question is by far the most complicated. Okay, so anyway, I'm Stephen Emerman. I'm a retired professor of geology. I retired in 2018. And then I started this consulting company called Malach Consulting. I got the wolf the year before, so he became the name of the consulting company. I'm in Spanish Fork, Utah. For your listeners who don't know, that's in the western United States. It's like right on the edge between the Rocky Mountains and the high desert. It's a very beautiful part of the U.S. Utah has famous for 5 big national parks. Okay. So what Malach Consulting does is we work mostly with mining impacted communities, give them the technical support they need, give them the information they need to respond in whatever way seems appropriate to them. So work with local governments, tribal governments, human rights organizations, environmental organizations, neighborhood organizations. Mining is the main thing, but also sometimes pipelines, landfills, urban development, groundwater pumping, timber harvesting, all kinds of industrial activity that communities might have concerns about.
So would it be right to say that you spent much of your career sort of evaluating mining projects, but now you're choosing to work with community? It seems to be like on the other side of the argument. Would that be a correct assessment?
No, I wouldn't say that. It's not like I switch sides.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, just to clarify one thing is one thing that consultants do or they're supposed to do is they're supposed to tell the truth. And it doesn't matter who your client was.
Okay.
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 So, Save Our Sperrins and Communities Against the Injustice of Mining asked me to evaluate the consequences of a failure of the mine waste facility at the Pollanroe Gold Mine. And I told the truth as I saw it. If Dalradian had asked me the same question, I would have given them the same answer.
Oh, that's
Okay.
really interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. That's the main thing. Consultant. I'm not saying it's always the case, but it's what we're supposed to do is tell the truth. Okay.
Okay.
I have had mining industry clients. So the majority has been communities, and I still do. Sometimes they'll ask me, they'll say, we want to build a tailings storage facility to the absolute highest standards. And what would that be? And I tell them, in the early days, it was what eventually became Safety First Guidelines for Responsible Mine Tailings Management. And now I just summarize that document for them and tell them to read that document. Okay, so I've answered that kind of question a lot.
Okay.
The majority of my clients are certainly communities or local or tribal governments. It's not like I worked for industry and then switched and started working for communities.
Right. I understand. Sometimes because we can only look from one perspective, it's hard to see. I'm glad you clarified that, And I just want to bring you back. How did you get into this kind of consulting in the first place? I think I cut across you.
Okay. I'll try to explain. It's sort of. It's a little complicated. It kind of all goes back to my father. My father was big on personal responsibility. And if he thought if there's something in the world you don't like, you're supposed to do something about it. And that's what I would say to me, Steve, what are you going to do about it? If there's something I didn't like, okay, you don't just sit and watch, you do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of been like the history of my family. My father had two cousins who couldn't wait long enough for the U.S. to get into the war. And so they took the bus to Canada and enlisted in the British Army and fought in North Africa.
Okay.
And I've ancestors who went to Spain to fight in the Civil War. This might not mean much to an Irish audience, but my mother's mother worked for the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in the 1940s.
Oh, wow.
It was a very, very, very dangerous thing to do. I'm not sure that means anything to you, but it's a very dangerous thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been kind of what my family has done. Okay. And just another part of this. So I'm born in 1956 and then grew up in the 60s. And this is not long after the Holocaust. Okay. So for my generation, we're kind of hounded with this information. Okay.
Yeah.
This whole story about there were Germans and they knew what was going on and they did nothing. Well, I don't know, it wasn't quite that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's kind of how we were brought up. But we will never be those people who know this terrible thing that's happening and do nothing.
And do nothing.
Okay, well, it's kind of my family and kind of my generation were brought up this way.
Okay.
So that's been, I don't know, that's been my attitude. Okay, something I don't like. Well, what am I going to do about it? Okay.
Yeah.
And usually if I hear about something, I feel like there's a reason that's been brought to my attention. Okay. Well, because I have some role to play in this. And my whole work with tailings dams, it all started in 2013. I'm at a meeting of Geological Society of America. Woman's giving a presentation. Said they need someone to solve a particular problem. That problem was about the consequences of failure of a particular tailings dam. Okay. And she's leaving after the meeting. I go up to her and I say, I can help you. Okay. Well, I was kind of brought up that way. Okay. There must be a reason why I'm sitting here listening to this.
Yeah.
Someone saying we need someone to help us. And I've been working with helping communities understand tailings dams pretty steadily since then. I mean, it'd be 12 years ago now.
Okay.
And then 7 years ago, I decided, well, I'd rather do this full time instead of teaching.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, that's how it happened.
Oh, that's a fascinating story. And it's funny what gets passed down to us in legacy, or what we inherit in our DNA, and what makes us be in action in the world.
Mhm.
So turning now to understanding the science a little, in the Dalradian planning documents, the company uses a few different terms to describe the same structure, sometimes calling it a dry stack facility, other times a mine waste storage facility, or even a filtered tailings stack. Can you explain to our listeners what the structure is, and from your perspective, do those different labels mean anything technically? And what is the term that you would use for the same structure?
Okay. Well, mine waste facility or mine waste storage facility is fine.
Yeah.
The facility is not intended to store just tailings, but also waste rock and ore rejects. Just to make sure your listeners understand this, um, tailings are the wet and crushed rock particles that remain after the commodity of value has been removed. Okay, it's what
Yeah.
remains from the ore body. Okay,
Yeah.
and now the danger is this material is so fine grained, so wet, they could easily be unstable. Okay,
Uh-huh.
waste rock is the rock that must be removed to reach the ore body. So that
Yeah.
tends to be in larger pieces. Okay,
Yeah.
now what ore rejects mean is you take the ore body, you crush it into like gravel-sized pieces, and then each piece is examined using various technologies. And if there's not enough of your commodity gold to be worth processing, it just goes into the ore reject pile. Okay, so
Okay.
you don't create more tailings than necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
those are the three types of waste rock, ore rejects, tailings. Okay.
Yeah.
Their plan is to filter the tailings, that is, reduce the water content to about 15%.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Um, the industry term is filter tailings storage facility. Okay. You could call it mine waste storage facility because it's not storing just tailings. Either of
Yeah.
those would be correct. Okay. Dry stack facility is a very different matter. Okay.
Okay.
This is non-standard terminology. It's really a marketing term or a PR term because the tailings are not literally dry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
if they were literally dry, okay,
Yeah.
you would have an awful dust issue, and you also could not compact them into the storage facility. And
Okay.
as many industry publications have denounced this term, dry stack facility, industry publications have said that's misleading to the public. It's misleading to regulators. That the tailings are not literally dry.
Okay.
Okay. And I mean, I hear that a lot from mining companies. They say, don't worry about failure, that the tailings are dry. Well, no, they're not dry.
No, they're not.
Okay. There's no universe in which 50% is just the target. Okay. But you could have tailings 20, 22, 23% water, and there's no universe where that's called dry. Okay. I've seen the worst example in the United States. A new lithium mine called Thacker Pass. The
Yeah.
water content of the tailings, the target is 46%. And they call that a dry stack facility. Well, sorry, half water is
Yeah.
not called dry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, this is just marketing.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I will not use that phrase dry stack facility except to quote from someone else or give the official name of something.
Okay. Okay. That's very clear. Thank you for that. Your report shows that these facilities have failed multiple times in the past few years. Why is failure not only possible, but as you say, inevitable?
Okay. Okay. Let me do this in three ways. Okay.
Yeah.
The first is failure is always possible. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
That's true for any engineering project, any engineered structure, any plan project of any kind. Failure is possible.
Okay.
Okay. And what I really object to is statements in the environmental statement. I think what they say is that these facilities are inherently stable, which is another way of saying failure is impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. If I was on the regulatory agency and I read that statement, I would reject it immediately. I would say, I don't need to hear any more. Okay, this
Yeah.
is not a serious. This is not even a serious study.
Yeah.
when you say something is inherently stable, because there's no
Yeah.
such thing as inherently stable. There's no such thing as failure is impossible. That's usually the
Yeah.
start of a movie. start of a
Walt
science
Disney
fiction
movie, no?
or a science fiction movie or whatever. And we know it's horror movie. And we know what's going to happen after that, after someone says failure is impossible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's even the name of an old movie called Fail Safe. Okay. Okay. So anyway, yes, failure is always possible. Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll probably get into this later, but that's the whole purpose of an environmental impact study, is to talk about, well, what the risks are, and are those risks acceptable to a government, acceptable to the public? Okay. Well, you got to be honest that there really are risks. Okay.
Yeah.
If you say there's no risk, well, then you've done nothing. You have not written an environmental impact study. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, another fairly a basic principle, which is fairly obvious, is that whatever has happened can happen again. Okay.
Right.
So
Okay.
yes, there have been multiple failures of these kinds of facilities with very similar designs. Okay.
Yeah.
One of these filtered tailing stacks collapsed in Brazil, Pollanroe mine, January 2022. Fortunately, no fatalities, but it buried a highway. Okay, with
Yeah.
a lot of delays, economic consequences, and so on, buried over a major highway.
Yeah.
Okay. September 2024, one of these facilities collapsed in Mexico, contaminated a river, which was drinking water supply for various communities.
Right.
December 2024, gold mine in Brazil, the filter tailing stack collapsed. It buried much of the mining infrastructure. It buried the emergency escape exit. Fortunately, there were no fatalities. Okay, but I think 134 community members had to be evacuated.
Right.
Okay. Now, in this year, March 22nd of this year, one of these facilities failed in Indonesia. It was the first time one of these facilities actually liquefied. Okay, yes, it was called dry stack facility, but it underwent liquefaction. Tailings poured into the Bahadopi River, overflowed onto many industrial sites, finally emptied in the Banda Sea. 6 days later, March 22nd of this year, the adjoining dry stack facility collapsed. 4 mine workers were missing. They spent the next day searching with excavators. They found 1 survivor. They found 2 bodies. The 4th body was never found. Okay, so yes, these tailings can liquefy, they can fail, they can kill people. Okay.
Right. Right.
After that failure in Indonesia, I looked on satellite imagery, and it seemed to be a well-defined earlier. This is imagery from January. A well-defined landslide from the facility with a well-defined pathways to the Bahadopi River. So it seemed to me these failures had occurred before. Okay.
Okay. Right.
And then kind of since then, there's been various emerging videos taken by mine workers showing the facilities collapsing, engulfing bulldozers, burying bulldozers. So at least 5 documented failures with indications of there's been more. So yes, they have failed. So yes, they can fail. Okay, it's kind of just based on basic logic. Anything could fail, but if they failed in the past, of course they could fail in the future.
Okay.
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 Now you're asking on the question is failure actually inevitable? Okay, and I would say yes. Okay, and I wanted to emphasize this is not me talking, and I'm not quoting from a Greenpeace publication. I'm
Okay.
talking about official mining industry documents. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I just happen to have sitting right here an excellent book. Okay. Tailings Management Handbook. Okay. Society for Mining, Metallurgy, and Exploration. Okay. So this is official industry information.
Okay.
Okay. So the very first chapter called What Are Tailings? Okay.
Yeah.
The very first chapter tells us that tailing storage facilities will require maintenance in perpetuity. That is forever. Okay. It says we have no idea how to design any engineering structure that can last forever. So they will require maintenance in forever. Okay.
Yeah.
Forever. Now, who's going to carry out maintenance forever?
Yeah.
Okay, does Dalradian have a plan? How they're going to remain at this site forever, carrying out maintenance? Well, of course not. And if they said they did, who would believe them?
Yeah.
Okay. And no matter what your intentions are, how can you even make that kind of promise? There's a question I often ask audiences. I say, who do you think is maintaining all of the many tailings dams in the Ukraine right now? And usually pretty quickly someone says, nobody. I said, yeah, that's right. That's the correct answer. Nobody is. How could they possibly be doing so? Okay. Now,
Yeah.
this could, I mean, logically, this makes sense. There's no engineering structure can be abandoned. Okay. Like, for example, a water retention dam for hydropower, irrigation, whatever
Yeah.
purpose. If you don't need it anymore or you can't maintain it anymore, it's completely demolished. It's blown up. Okay.
Right.
You can't simply abandon a dam. I mean, responsibly, you can't. Okay. You can't abandon a dam or it's just going to collapse at an unknown time with consequences that are difficult to predict. You maintain it or you demolish it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing with the bridge, highway, any engineering structure, you maintain it or you demolish it.
Right.
A skyscraper, you can't just abandon it. Okay.
Right.
If you can't maintain it, well, you demolish it. Okay. But a tailings dam has to confine those toxic tailings in perpetuity. So, yes, literally, if you don't want it to fail, it has to be monitored, inspected, maintained, and reviewed in perpetuity. Okay,
Right.
is that
yeah? That's very clear.
okay. But there's more to it. There's more to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, one of the people I honor the most in this field, Professor Stephen Vick, he literally wrote the textbook, Planning, Analysis, and Design of Tailings Dams. Okay, if you take a course in mining engineering, you use that textbook. Okay.
Yeah.
He says, regardless of anyone's intentions, we should regard failure of a tailings dam as inevitable. Okay? He says simply because there are so many things can go wrong with enough time. He says after a century, call it 50-50. If you're talking several centuries, just accept probability of failure is 100%. Okay? He says normally we talk about risk as a combination of the probability of failure and the consequences of failure. And he says for tailings dams, forget about probability. It's inevitable, and risk is only about consequences. Okay? Meaning, if you do not think the failure of that facility at that spot would be acceptable at some future time, don't build the tailings dam.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right. Okay.
So I'm telling you, these are industry positions. It's not me talking.
Yeah.
And it's not some radical left NGO.
Yeah.
Okay. This is from the industry.
Okay. That's great. That's clear. Staying with the science, can you walk us as simply as possible to how you calculated that tailings could travel between 20 and 65 kilometres? And what sort of information or comparisons did you use to work that out?
Okay, good. Okay. So first of all, when I talked about 20 kilometers in the most likely scenario, 65 kilometers in the worst case scenario, I was talking about the initial event. Okay, that's the initial event that's powered by the gravitational energy released as the tailings fall out of the facility.
Okay.
Well, once the tailings enter a river, the river keeps flowing.
Right.
Okay. The tailings don't stop till they reach the ocean. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
When the tailings dam in the Sirmaco mine in Brazil collapsed in 2015, the tailings traveled 657 kilometers until the river emptied into the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
Well, they're nothing going to stop these tailings. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just talking about the initial event. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of how I calculated this, there's two parts to this. Okay. The first part is I looked at all of the past tailings dam failures, and I looked at the relationship between the storage volume and the release volume.
Okay.
It's a pretty good relationship. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So based on that, based upon the storage volume at this proposed Grignalt mine.
Yeah.
I said that most likely when the facility fails, it will release 34% of the stored tailings. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Now, there's another relationship which starts with the dam factor, and that's a combination of the height of the dam, the release volume, and the storage volume.
Okay.
That predicts the run-out distance. That is how
Okay.
far the tailings will go in the initial event.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? So
Yeah.
based upon a height of 59 meters and the storage volume, that predicted in the most likely scenario, meaning if you release 34% of the tailings will go 20 kilometers. Okay?
I get
in the
it.
initial
Okay.
event. Okay?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the worst case scenario, you release 100% of the tailings. And I know of at least 4 cases where this happened. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
The tailings will go 65 kilometers. Okay?
Right.
But keep
Yeah.
in mind that that's just the initial event. Then they keep going to the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay? But
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
part of this is that most of those past failures have involved liquefied tailings. Okay? But we could have a solid slump off of that mine waste facility.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now I looked at past solid slumps. Brazil, 2022, Brazil again, 2024, and found that after a solid slump without liquefaction, the tailings tend to go 20 times the height.
Okay. Yeah.
So in this case, the tailings will go 1,180 meters,
Okay.
flowing along Pollanroe Burn.
Yeah.
So there's multiple entry points into that stream.
Yeah.
So once the tailings have mixed with water, well, then it's a fully liquefied mass.
All
Okay.
right.
And then we see, well, now those past failures are certainly relevant because now we're talking about liquefied tailings.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We could also have an initial liquefaction of the stack because, well, that happened in Indonesia. So we know that that can happen. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, that's the basic idea. That's how I did the calculation.
That's fascinating. And it's scary. And one wonders why you would ever have them in the first place, But anyways.
Okay. I get that's the topic of this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, let's move from that leads us naturally to local impact scenarios.
Okay.
So often we've local farmers asking if a tailings collapse follow the path that you describe through the Pollanroe Burn, the Owenreagh and the Owenkillew rivers, what kind of contamination do you know would reach their agricultural land or grazing stock? Just let's start there with that one.
Okay, so the tailings are acid generating. Okay, I mean they'll be acidic. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, according to, I'm talking about information from Dalradian. It was in their statement of case. Okay.
Yeah.
The tailings will be enriched in arsenic, antimony, and sulfur. Okay. That's standard for gold mine tailings.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. They give another list: silver, bismuth, barium, cadmium, copper, mercury, molybdenum, nickel, phosphorus, lead, selenium, tellurium, uranium, tungsten, and zinc.
Lovely.
Oh, I read that right out of a Dalradian statement of case. Okay, I did not make that up. Okay. Well, that's quite a list of heavy metals, especially arsenic, which is very common with gold mine tailings. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that's going to have quite a impact on agricultural land. Okay. But what really will be the consequences in terms of economic losses and so on? That's all supposed to be in the environmental impact study. That's been my question all along. Where is the analysis of the consequences of failure? Okay. You can't just say failure is impossible. If you say that, I don't even look at this study anymore because it's not a study at all. Yeah. Okay. But that's exactly the kind of information that should have been evaluated in the environmental impact study. Right. That's the kind of information that should be coming from the government, should be coming from Dalradian Gold. Okay. Yeah. But if I'm just want to look at past history, spills of tailings on agricultural lands have generally destroyed their use in agriculture. There was a failure at the Sant Fins mine in Spain in 1960. It basically flowed onto agricultural land. Okay, and those lands are still barren. I mean, to this very day, there's nothing grown on those lands.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. So,
So I mean, we certainly should expect there to be consequences. But my main point is, well, let's analyze it. Okay, let's have a study of the consequences, and then the public can make an informed decision. Okay, we know what the risks. Are we okay with those risks or not?
Yeah, yeah.
But to simply keep saying over and over, nothing can go wrong. Well, wait a minute. That's how a bad horror movie starts.
Do you know how long they would persist in soil or water? Have you any idea? Say soil, and let's not say water. Say soil.
Well, I don't know that anyone knows that. I mean, I don't know of any case of recovery of an area from a tailings dam failure.
Right.
I don't know when that's happened. Okay. I visited the site of the failure at the Mount Polley Dam in British Columbia. I visited that 4 years after the failure. And what had been a salmon creek was nothing but a broad sea of tailings as far as you could see tailings. Okay.
Yeah.
The tailings do not go to the ocean because they emptied in a lake. Okay. And then the lake was important for salmon culture, for salmon industry. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so there's a lot of contamination of the lake, but as lakes do, they overturn twice a year. So twice a year, those tailings are resuspended, meaning it's like the lake, from the lake standpoint, the tailings dam failure occurs twice a year.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And that will keep happening until the tailings are finally buried by sediment. Now we're talking like 10,000 years or something for that to happen.
Okay.
I did see in that area, I mean, the mining company talks about its remediation. Okay. They even won some award for remediation. Okay.
Yeah.
But I saw it was a tour not given by the company, but by the indigenous people. Okay. So they're talking about how the salmon is the basis of their culture. And now there's no salmon. Okay.
Okay.
You see these, it kind of looks like a tree without branches, but what is that? Well, those are just metal poles. Why are they here? Well, the company put them up for bird habitat. Well, no, they're no birds. Birds aren't that stupid. Okay. You can't just hire some birds to sit on these poles. The birds are saying, "Where's the fish? We're out of this place." Okay.
Right.
I mean, I would kind of assume that recovery will not happen. I mean, I don't know of a case where there's been recovery from a tailings dam failure. Okay. People will argue about whether a tailings storage facility has been fully returned to a useful purpose, returned to nature, stabilized, vegetated. People will argue about that. They'll say there's cases of full rehabilitation. Other people disagree. But the idea of an area impacted by a failure and has that ever recovered, I would say no. Okay. Something you might keep in mind is that tailings dams never have insurance for failure. Never. Okay. That's regarded as an uninsurable risk.
Uninsurable risk.
Okay. And go ahead, ask your government, ask Dalradian. Do you have insurance against a failure? Okay. And I'm sure they don't. Okay. I mean, who would insure that? Okay. Because in cases where people have tried to estimate sort of, I don't mean the time to recovery, but I mean compensation for the damage. We're talking like the tens of billions, $50 billion, that kind of thing. Who's going to insure against that kind of risk? Funny,
that's a question it never occurred for me to ask. And it's a great question. If insurance companies won't touch it, why should the local population be?
Okay. I'll just add one other thing to keep in mind when you ask that question. Okay. Yeah. Keep in mind the difference between assurance and insurance.
Assurance and insurance, yeah. Okay.
I'm assuming it's the same in British English. Okay, but you can check. Okay. So financial assurance means that you have the money set aside to close the mine.
Yeah.
Okay. Assuming everything goes normally.
Yeah.
Okay. Insurance is you have coverage against some
A future risk.
a failure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Something unanticipated.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good point to bring to my attention. So you've pretty much answered my next question, really, which is often the anglers and in general the river keepers along the Foyle and the Fim worry about salmon runs and about their freshwater pearl mussel beds that thrive in these waters and are protected under European law. I'm guessing that the likely impact on fish and mussels and aquatic life would be pretty much similar as to what you've already described. It would be a total wipeout.
Okay. I can add a little bit to what I said previously.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly this would be quite the burst of both suspended matter, turbid water, plus heavy metals.
Yeah.
Okay. You did have a failure at a gold mine tailings dam in Romania in 2000. Okay, that released actually only 100,000 cubic meters of water. It wasn't even tailings; it was just the water on top of the tailings.
Yeah.
That massive contaminated water flowed 2,000 kilometers all the way to the Black Sea.
Gosh.
That's what I'm saying. Well, what's going to stop it? Okay, with massive fish kills and massive destruction of aquatic species all along that stretch.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I was just going to give. I was going to give another example that just slipped my mind. Maybe that will come to me. Okay. But main thing is that no one has actually studied this. Okay. I mean, saying this will be the consequences of failure of this tailings facility. Impacts on agricultural land, impacts on rivers, impacts on the estuary, impacts on fish.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's how you make an informed decision. You don't just keep saying, well, trust us, nothing can go wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There certainly are many examples of massive fish kills from these failures of tailings facilities.
Okay. So theoretically, this contamination could extend way into Lough Foyle, and then there'll be consequences for the oyster and mussel beds and the Donegal seafood industry if there was a substantial failure.
I would expect that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's open up another layer of the story around drinking water this time and municipal authorities.
Yeah.
For water supply managers north and south of the border, how quickly could contaminants travel downstream? And do you think existing treatment plants would be able to cope?
Well, okay. So a typical speed of a tailings flood after failure, I mean, right when the failure occurs, the speed tends to exceed 100 kilometers per hour. And then a bit downstream, it slows down to about 35 kilometers per hour.
Right.
Okay. So you're kind of talking about the tailings reaching Lough Foyle in like hours to a day.
Right.
That kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, what I call that initial event, that would only last like half an hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Or in the worst case scenario, it would last 2 hours. Okay. Now, I mean, the first place I'd ask, how are people going to know this failure has occurred? Do you have some system, some emergency alert system? Do you have everything in place to notify all the downstream communities? Well, no. Okay. You're supposed to have what's called an emergency preparedness and response plan. Okay. That's not just me talking. That's in the global industry standard on tailings management. Okay. I haven't seen anything like that. Okay. Who's going to notify the community just downstream from the dam? The dam has failed. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're I'm assuming that there's communities that take their drinking water out of these rivers. Okay. But probably there's going to be a fair amount of uptake of water from these rivers before they even know to close down the water treatment plant. I assume that would happen.
Right.
Okay. But presumably as soon as someone knows there's been a failure, they're going to shut down their intake of water. Okay.
Right.
That happened after that failure in Romania that I mentioned. The tailings went right into the Danube River, out of which
Right.
many communities take up their drinking water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there was uptake of contaminated water. And of course, there was an emergency shutdown of the facilities, but then you had to thoroughly clean all of those treatment plants until they could be restarted. Okay. And of
Right.
course, you had to verify that the source of water was safe.
Huh.
Okay. Um,
Right.
I mean, a question I would ask, well, where's your plan? Well, where's the plan for dealing with all of this? Where's that emergency preparedness and response plan?
Right.
Okay. I mean, all of that should be in place. Okay. Everything that's going to be done when we hear that the tailings dam has failed. Okay. What's everyone's responsibility? What's everybody going to do? Okay.
Yeah.
That should be known now. Okay. Certainly before the bind is open. All that should be known. It should be known at this point. Okay. It's part of
Okay.
the public making an informed decision as to whether all of this is a good idea. Okay.
Okay.
That
Okay.
you make an emergency preparedness response plan on the basis of an analysis of the consequences of failure. That's what we start with. Okay.
Yeah.
If I was
Yeah.
the government, I would say first, you give me a complete analysis of everything that's going to go wrong after the tailings dam has failed.
Yeah.
Farms, fish, people, water treatment, everything. On the basis of that, let's see if we can develop a workable plan. And while we're doing that, let's think about whether we even want to do this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, flown on from that, to use a phrase, what you just told us, let's speak a little bit about cross-border governance and emergency services. Because the River Foyle forms part of the border, what kind of coordination do you think, or do you know, will be needed between the north of Ireland and the Republic of Ireland in a worst-case scenario?
Well, okay, first of all, worst case scenario is a technical term, meaning release of 100% of the stored tailings.
Okay.
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 Failure of the facility is not the worst case scenario. That's
Okay.
regarded as inevitable.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
just,
No,
I'm
thank
just
you.
clarifying that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We're just clarifying that. Okay. Now, certainly, as I was saying, we should have a fully developed emergency preparedness and response plan.
Yeah.
And of course, that has to be coordinated between the two governments,
Yeah.
coordinated, at many governmental levels.
Yeah.
Okay. These have been challenges in the past, as in I don't know of any case where this has been successful. Okay. I'll give an example right now.
Yeah.
United States and Mexico.
Right.
Okay. So United States wants to open Resolution Copper Mines, Rio Tinto mine in Arizona. Okay.
Uh-huh.
According to a final environmental impact statement issued by the U.S. government, this is not me talking.
Yeah.
Official governmental information. After failure, the tailings could travel 858 miles.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I convert that to kilometers or?
No, that's good. We work both here. 858 miles. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
It's far. Okay. That's not the worst case scenario. They call this the 75th percentile. Okay. Meaning in 25% of model outcomes, the tailings go farther than 858 miles. Okay. Well,
Right.
It's only 425 miles to the border with Mexico. Okay. Following the rivers.
Yeah.
And then it's another 85 miles to the Gulf of California, which is an arm of the Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
I mean, actually, in 40% of the model outcomes, the tailings reach Mexico flowing down the Colorado River.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mexican government says we should have an emergency preparedness and response plan. Okay.
Yeah.
U.S. government, this is in the final environmental impact statement. Okay.
Yeah.
Says no emergency preparedness and response plan is necessary at this time. Okay.
No.
So you can't develop a joint plan when one party says no plan is necessary.
Won't play.
Okay. So it's the recipient of the tailings is saying we need a plan, and the generator of the tailings is saying we don't need a plan. Okay. Well, okay, then there's not going to be a plan. Okay, that's kind of an analogous situation to the North of Ireland and the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I would find it hard to believe that anyone is actually working on an emergency preparedness and response plan at the governmental level right now. I mean, I could be wrong. I'd like to be wrong, but I find it hard to believe anyone is actually thinking about that. But they should be. This is the right time to be thinking about it.
Oh.
I mean, if I were, say, at the governmental level in the Republic of Ireland, and we have talk, we need to start working on a joint emergency preparedness and response plan. I would think, wait a minute. Why are we even getting into this? Why do we want to do this? Why are we doing this whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do we need this? Why do we need this gold mine in the north of Ireland? And the Republic of Ireland needs to have an emergency response plan when the tailings dam fails. That would kind of be my initial response.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have a tailings dam, you're supposed to have this plan. That's official industry position.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's absolutely frightening when as you lay it out, and I'm well used to it. I know all this, but hearing it again just really makes me more anxious about the whole idea. And
you haven't even heard the frightening part yet.
Okay. And next I want to ask you about.
Do you want to hear the frightening part?
Go on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, two things. This is actually what I forgot to mention before, but this is not the really frightening thing. Okay, is in terms of impacts on fish. Okay, when you dump tailings in a river, the metals can be stabilized. They can be attached to the tailings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But a change in river conditions, like a change in pH, change in temperature, change in oxygen, can remobilize those tailings.
Okay.
Okay. This is why tailings in rivers are called a chemical time bomb. Okay. Because any stabilization is just temporary.
Okay.
And various changes can just remobilize all of that.
Right.
Okay. And that's important consideration for the rivers and the loch. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this was the really frightening part, disturbing part. Okay. People talk about tailings as a curse. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the mining industry says, well, it's a necessary curse. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just the price you pay if you want metals. If you want gold, this is the price you pay. Okay. But the curse is that the tailings dam is there forever. And the industry says failure is inevitable.
Yeah.
Means that all future generations are going to worry about the failure of that tailings dam. Okay, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, people living along River Finn, River Foyle, River Owenkillew, Loch Foyle, they're going to worry about the failure of that tailings dam. Okay, until it happens.
Yeah.
Well, then you have a different set of worries.
Yeah.
Okay, and just imagining how they would think about us. It's like, why? How could you do this to us? Okay, how could you set up this time bomb for us?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, just imagine, we were living 100 years from now.
Yeah.
And we're thinking, what did you get out of it? What did you gain from this? You got some gold. Great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And now we live with the knowledge that one day or another, those tailings are going to come rushing down our river on the way to Loch Foyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what's really frightening to me, is to think about it from the standpoint of future generations.
It's generational.
Who are benefiting nothing. They're benefiting nothing from that gold mine.
Yeah.
Okay. And why do they have to bear that burden?
Yeah.
How could their ancestors put that burden onto them?
Yeah. A sobering thought. All right. And for do unto the seventh generation as you would do unto yourself, it's if you won't do, why would you do it? Why would you do that?
Okay, so 7 generations. Yeah, we're talking about over 200 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're saying yes, they will deal with that failure. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll enjoy the gold, whatever. We actually won't. Okay. If you want to talk about that. Okay. we won't. Okay. I say no one needs gold. Okay.
Yeah.
But to them, it's just about that time bomb that was set up for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. I think I derailed you a bit.
No, it's all right. I don't mind
Okay.
being derailed.
Okay.
So I'm just going to jump back and start the question I was going to ask you
Okay.
before you gave me all the bad news.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
So the next I want to ask you about really environmental and heritage concerns, and we've really just talked about it as well. The intergenerational risk and concern and anxiety and stress. And because of your years of studying mining impact across the world, do you think it alters how people relate to place that once gave them life, meaning, and belonging? What happens to people after a failure?
Oh, I see. Well,
Communities.
yeah, this is not something I'm terribly familiar with on a professional level. I'm sure you can imagine that these failures are very long-lived. I think your audience knows about the failure in Wales in 1962.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm glad people still know about
Oh,
that.
they do. Yeah. It was
Oh,
the anniversary was recently, wasn't it? In the last 10 days or 2 weeks or something. I think I'm not sure.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. We're very
Well,
very familiar with it.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it basically killed every child in the village.
Uh-huh.
This is not, this is not something someone bounces back from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I told you I visited the site of the Mount Polly
Yeah.
failure.
Uh-huh.
This was 4 years ago, and their whole culture is based on salmon. It's the Secwepemc Nation. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that right. Okay, but that's a lot to have culture destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
and to see metal poles on which birds are supposed
Yeah.
to pose for photos.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm very involved in the disaster of Brumagino that occurred in 2019.
Okay.
I'm an expert witness in that lawsuit against the mining company Vale.
Okay.
So that killed 272 people, 258 mine workers, and 14 bystanders. That's not the kind of thing you bounce back from.
Yeah.
Okay, at that failure in 2015, it was the same mining company. It was Vale. Okay, same company, Vale and BHP joint venture. That's a lawsuit in the London court because BHP trades on the London Stock Exchange.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking for, I think, $70 billion
Okay.
in damages. Okay, that's their assessment of what were the economic costs to them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's something you expect people to recover from.
Okay.
Is kind of the best I can put it. Okay. I know it's not, I don't do this professionally, but there are studies of the, psychological, mental impacts on victims of tailings failures. I can't imagine there's any study of the recovery from a failure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's best I can put it.
Yeah. It's the extermination of a community, really. If there's, the scale of loss of life you're talking about there,
It's a pretty horrible loss of life. Most of the loss of life comes from being buried.
Yeah. Yeah. From your perspective, does the engineering or environmental science data justify building a filtered tailings at Curnalt, given what we already know about their failure rates, toxicity, and downstream risks?
Well,
And even if the science or engineering could somehow be made to work, does it make sense ethically to take the risk, knowing the potential harm to people's river and the future generations?
Okay.
Yeah.
In response to your first question, I was really going to say this is really an ethical question, not an engineering question.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we always talk about benefits and risks. Okay. And so that's the question we're asking. Do the benefits outweigh the risks? Okay. But then you also have to ask, well, wait a minute, who's getting the benefits and who's bearing the risks? Okay. If those are different people, we have a serious violation of ethics that one group of people bears risks so another group of people can benefit. We got a real problem there. Okay. People will say to me, they'll say, we need copper. But they think they've said the most brilliant thing anyone's ever said. Okay. And I said, we got various things here. I mean, the first thing is, well, what does it mean to have a need? Okay. But another question is, who is this we? Who is this we who needs metals, who needs copper, who needs gold? Who is this we? Okay. People act like the world is some kind of giant town hall, okay, where, we've all got an equal voice. We all share together in the risks and benefits. We're all one community. We all want to build this mine. We'll all benefit. We'll all take the risks. Okay. And the world is nothing like that. Okay.
Yeah.
You got people who will bear the risks and you have people who will benefit. And often those two groups of people have a huge disparity in power. Okay. I mean, that's how mines happen. Okay. It's not because we need them. It's because the ones who will benefit have much more power than the ones who will assume the risks. Okay. So, I mean, this whole discussion has serious ethical problems. Okay. In terms of, well, do the benefits outweigh the risks? Well, we're talking about two different groups of people. Okay. Now, especially when I look at it from the standpoint of a fisherman in Loch Foyle, how's he or she benefiting from this mine?
Yeah, no benefit.
I don't know. I can't even imagine. Okay. Or even the people who live we're going to live along Owenkillew River or Pollanroe Burn. Okay, well, I know someone might benefit, someone might get a job there. Okay. But many people, they're not benefiting at all. Okay. They're all risk.
Yeah.
Okay. And that we got a problem there. We have a serious ethical problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And to say, I mean, this whole statement to say this facility cannot fail, this facility is inherently stable. Okay. I don't see how that could be acceptable to the government from any perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. If I was on any regulatory capacity, I would say, I'm done with you guys. If that's how you're going to talk. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're not going to have a serious conversation about the risk, then we're done talking.
Right.
Okay.
Finally, coming to our sort of closing reflection.
Okay.
If you could speak directly, and I think you've already said it, to planners and politicians who will decide whether this project goes ahead, what would you want them to understand, not about the figures or modelling, but about the human and ecological cost of getting it wrong?
Well, I would say that you have no idea what happens if something goes wrong. Okay? Because you have never seen a full study of the consequences of failure. Okay? A full study meaning not only how far the tailings will travel. And I've never seen a statement from Dalradian. Okay? Okay. How far the tailings will travel, the speed of the tailings flood, the depth of the tailings. Okay? That fluid mechanics part. I've never seen that. But the consequences are consequences to human life, to health, to agriculture, to schools, to public facilities, to water treatment plants. Okay, you have never seen that study. And that's fundamental to decision making. Okay, you ask, yes, what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if it all goes south? Okay, you have never seen that. Okay, have they ever asked for that?
No, not as far
Well,
as I know.
probably not. Okay, because if they had asked for that, they would have demanded that, and presumably either the company would have gone away or they would have supplied that. Okay, so I'd say, well, that's what we start with. Okay, we start with talking about what could go wrong. Okay, and now we talk about, well, how can we keep that? How can we minimize the chance of what can go wrong? Okay, and then we talk about, well, is this worth the risk? Is this acceptable? Is this acceptable to the public? Is it acceptable to the Republic of Ireland, to the north of Ireland? Okay, but this standpoint of nothing can go wrong, no, forget that.
So sometimes these decisions are made far from the communities who bear the impact. So, like, here we are in the Sperrins, and this decision has been made by someone over there, the other side of the country. You know,
right?
What do you think local communities lose when policy is separated from place and from the people or the land itself?
Well, I'd say that's fairly fundamental, is the voice of the impacted people is very important. Okay. I'm one of the authors of Safety First Guidelines for Responsible Mine Tailings Management. And sometimes people want the one sentence version. Okay. They want it summed up. What's most important here? Okay. And I said, most important is you don't build a tailings dam without the consent of the impacted community. Okay. That the communities downstream, they have a right to say yes, they have a right to say no. Okay. They don't just have a right to be consulted, or they have the right to consent. Okay. And the right to consent means the right to withhold consent. Okay. So I'd say if we say that decisions are to be made by people on the other side of the mountain, okay, and on our side of the mountain, their voice is not being considered, not just being considered, but being fundamental. That is, someone's waiting for their response, their yes or no. I'd say we have a serious violation of justice here.
Okay. Yeah. Stephen, in this podcast, I always end with two questions. And the first one being, who else would you recommend we speak to on this podcast? Someone whose perspective could deepen public understanding of mining impacts or water protection.
Oh, I see. Well, there's other people in the similar business as me. Okay, that is, they work with mining impacted communities. They specialize in tailings dams. Dave Chambers is one. David Chambers. If you look for Center for Science and Public Participation, you'll see his name. Okay. He's executive director. I think he just retired. Okay. It would probably be a similar message to what I'm giving you. Okay.
Right. Do you know anyone by any chance who suffered as a result of a failures and would be willing to come onto the podcast? You know, a villager or a miner, or that would be. And perhaps you may not be able to think of anyone now, but perhaps in the
I don't have personal connections with them, but I know people who could connect you with those people. Okay. I have been on events where someone from Brumadinho has spoken, where someone impacted by the Mount Polly failure has spoken. Okay. I'll tell you what I'll do. Okay. There's a U.S.-Canadian listserv called Western Mining Action Network.
Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah.
if I post on this listserv that you're looking for someone on a podcast who is personally impacted by a tailings dam failure, there'll be
Yes.
somebody respond from the Mount Poly impacted community.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
perfect. That's perfect.
Okay. Then
Okay.
I will stick with that. But just in case, I'll float this to some Brazilian colleagues about someone impacted by Samarco or Brumadinho.
Yeah.
Okay.
They probably have to be English speakers, though I do have someone who could probably interview them in Spanish and we could translate it back,
Well, I have heard some of them speak in perfect English.
Okay, yeah.
And that's
okay.
Portuguese.
Portuguese. I beg your pardon.
I beg your
pardon. Of course, it's Portuguese.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I will find someone who can do that.
Okay, that's wonderful, and I'll check out if you had a contact for David Chambers as well, or I'll just look him up and track him down.
I will send you a contact anyway.
Okay, that's great. Our last question: what gives you hope in the work that you're doing now?
Oh, okay. Well, let me give you a couple answers here. The simple answer is I don't care about hope, but let me explain that. Okay. I know people ask me a lot, and I feel like I'm supposed to say something like, well, when I look in the eyes of my little granddaughter, okay, whatever. Okay. I have had groups say to me that they'll say, the fact that you're helping me, the fact that I'm helping them must mean that I think they have some chance of success. Right? They'll say that, oh, you must think we have some chance of success since you're helping us. And I'd say, no, that's got nothing to do with anything. I'm helping you because you asked me for help.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not saying you have a chance of success. Okay.
Yeah.
You asked me for help. That's it. Okay. The second is that it's really that I don't have time to worry about this. Okay. What I mean by is that, I click on the news every morning just out of habit. It's like, oh, I can't deal with this. I don't know, on and on and on and on. Every day is something new. Every couple of hours, something. I can't deal with all of this. Okay. I got to focus on what I have to do. That is my immediate task. Okay, my immediate task is you would not believe the backlog of reports I have to write. Okay, I've got to focus on this. Okay, I can't worry about everything happening in the world and what if. Okay, sometimes people will say, they'll say, don't you worry about whether anyone will listen to you. I say, that's not my job. Okay. The groups I work with, they have people in communications. They have people connected to politicians. They have lawyers. That's their problem. Okay. I got to focus on my task. Okay. Which is to write my reports. Okay. So I can't really worry about, well, what's going to happen. People ask me, oh, aren't you worried about what Trump's going to do? It's like, no, I don't have time. I don't have time to worry about him. Okay. But just to give you I'll give you more philosophical perspective. Okay. So I follow a branch of Jewish mysticism that's called Kabbalah. Okay. Now, kind of the basic question of Kabbalah is it asks, why are we here? Why were we incarnated? Because we must have been perfectly happy in heaven. Okay. So why did we come back down to earth? Okay.
Yeah.
So the basic idea is that you come back down to earth because there's something that you failed to accomplish in a previous life. And this is your chance to get it right.
Yeah.
It's like your second chance to get it right, to do it again. Okay. So you're presented with the challenges that you need to grow spiritually. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's your challenge. Here's your big opportunity. You can do it right. You can grow. You can be a better person. Okay. So that I'm in exactly the situation that I need to be at this moment for my own spiritual growth.
Yeah.
okay, which is for some reason that's too difficult for me to understand, and I don't have time to worry about it, okay, because that's my challenge, is to help save the Sperrins, okay, and is there hope? I don't know. Who cares?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, well, so long as you keep doing your karmic assignment, we're very happy with that.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I just don't recognize this whole concept of hope doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's
that's
just
fair.
that I'm here on Earth and I got my job to do, and I just better do it. Okay. And it's not. There's a Catholic version of it. just just for your listeners. Okay. So I was in El Salvador for a while, and I had this priest explain to me liberation theology. Okay. I had it all wrong till he explained it. Okay. Because there's 4 steps. Okay. The first is look around you, look at the world, look at what's happening. Okay. Second is judge. What about this world? You like what's going on? You have problems with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the third is take action. Okay. You don't like what's going on? Well, act, do something. Okay. Do what you can do. Okay. To change that situation.
Yeah.
And the last step is celebrate. Well, celebrate what? Celebrate that you have been given this opportunity. Okay. To see what's happening, make a judgment, and take action.
Okay.
And that's your whole big party in this life, okay, is celebrating that you've been given this great opportunity. Okay. It's kind of similar to Kabbalah.
And it kind of brings you full circle to what your father handed to you, isn't it? If you don't like something, take action.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we started this conversation.
Yeah. Circle back. I love it. Dr. Stephen Emerman, thank you so much for joining me and for sharing your insights with such generosity. Thank you for your years of work across the globe and your unstinting service to communities, helping us all protect the land and the water, and is making a real difference. It's been an honour to have you with us here today.
Thank you. Would you like a last view of the wolf? Is he back there?
Oh yeah, there he is.
Well, the storm has ended, so he's just taking a nap right now.
He's settled.
he's
That conversation with Dr. Stephen Emerman left us with much to think about. His decades of research into tailings facilities around the world brought a sobering clarity to what we're facing here in the Sperrins. He reminded us that the standard industry position is that all tailings dams will eventually fail, and that every single one will require maintenance in perpetuity. Think about that for a moment. A project that creates a permanent liability, one that must be watched and maintained for generations to come. And Stephen also pointed out that the Dalradian planning application, there is no analysis of the consequences of failure, the kind of clear, transparent assessment that should have been included in the environmental impact study, so the public could make an informed decision. Without that, we are being asked to take the company's word on faith with no credible modelling of what happens if, or rather when, the structure fails. And perhaps most striking of all, he told us that the tailings dams are never insured against failure. They are considered an uninsurable risk. I'll say that again. He told us that the tailings dams are never insured against failure. They are considered an uninsurable risk. The financial and human costs of collapse are simply too great for any insurers to carry, and so the burden of that risk falls inevitably on the land, the rivers, and the communities who live beside them. Our heartfelt thanks to Stephen for his time and his ongoing service to communities like ours. His work reminds us that science, real, rigorous, independent science, is essential if truth is to have any place in public debate. For those of us living in the Sperrins, his insights couldn't be more relevant. They highlight how the burden of proof has once again fallen on local shoulders, on the farmers, on the teachers, on the families, on the parents, on the volunteers, people doing their best to protect the water, the soil, and their children's futures. And it raises a difficult but necessary question. In what sense can that be called democracy or good practice in planning law when ordinary citizens are forced to hold multinational corporations to account with little more than courage, persistence, and the truth on their side. We're deeply grateful to Dr. Stephen Emerman for helping us see this and for reminding us that what's at stake here isn't just about mining or one company's proposal, but about the kind of future we want to leave behind. A future where science serves people, not profit, and where the land itself still has a voice. And of course, a special mention goes to Malak, Stephen's rescue wolf, who quietly supervised our conversation from the corner of the room. A living reminder that loyalty, instinct, and good judgment still exist in the world, even though they're sometimes in short supply amongst planners and politicians. For the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the earth that grows our food, we hold the line. You've been listening to the Save Our Sperrins podcast, Voices from the Frontline. Thank you for joining us today. All the links you'll need, from campaign updates to our social media pages, as well as links shared by today's guests and resources mentioned in the conversation, are available in the show notes. Please take a moment to share this podcast with friends, neighbours, or anyone who cares about protecting our land and communities. And don't forget to hit the follow button on your podcast platform. It really helps the algorithm spread these voices further. Together, our voices are stronger. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep standing with the land, the water, the air, and the people who protect them.